This is just a quick video for my dirty weekend vlogging that I do. I haven't done anything for a while. Now, unfortunately, I hate the kitchen in the house that I'm renting. I have been painstakingly trying to move house just so that I can have a kitchen that actually does what it's supposed to, and that is be a kitchen and not be an extension of what is a end terrace property, which obviously when was extended by whoever owned the house, or maybe my landlord I've got now, I don't know. Well, I know it wouldn't have been him, he's like in his 20s, so maybe his dad did it, which is totally, in my opinion, impractical. For starters, the electric sockets, in my opinion, aren't where they should be, but I'm not an electrician. But one of the issues I have is just I don't think it's all been wired in right, because if I was to plug too many items in to the kitchen to work, it trips the electrics, which is probably a good thing so that I don't get electrocuted like last time. But at the same time, it just, to me, proves that it hasn't been wired in right, because to have my slow cooker and my kettle plugged in and, say, my humidifier, and then for the electrics to trip, it's a bit of a worry that is happening. So I have to be very vigilant, because it's very frustrating to have to constantly go and put the electric back on. I mean, the main infrastructure of the kitchen that I am in at the moment, you can clearly see how many stress cracks there are, especially around the door frame. And if you were to go to the outside of the property, you would see a major stress crack. Luckily, that hasn't ended up being internally so far. So I'm constantly hypervigilant as to whether or not that wall is going to fall down. You can also see there are a lot of cobwebs, but I don't mind the spiders. I know people say, oh no, don't have spiders in your house. But one of the main issues I have is I have a lot of ivy. It isn't mine, it's next door, so I'm forever painstakingly trying to keep it at bay and cut it back. But last year, it may have been a year before, there was actually loads of wasps in that ivy, and they were coming into my kitchen. But the one thing that actually prevented them from coming in, funnily enough, was the spiders. So I was so relieved that I wasn't one of these people that's like, oh God, there's spiders in the window, I've got to get rid of them, I've got to kill them, I've got to constantly clean the window frame. Because this window actually isn't properly sealed around the outside. So even though the window was closed, the wasps were still getting into my kitchen whenever I had any fruit, or if there was something sweet, like my sugar bowl was constantly full of wasps. Luckily, my landlord was very nice, and he did pay to have the situation dealt with. But I keep saying to him, you know, if you just bothered to actually fit the window correctly, that might not be an issue. You can also see there are watermarks appearing above where the window is, and that again is because the gutters are blocked. Yes, I know people are probably going to say online, well, if you're that worried about things like this happening, fix it yourself. Well, if I fix it myself, then I'm liable. It's the same if you have a council house, or rent a council or housing association property. If you report a fault, but then you go and do the work yourself and something goes wrong, you're liable. Okay, and when I'm paying my landlord almost £1,000 a month to rent a 2-bedroom end terrace, and I'm saying to him, you need to fix something because you are getting water damage into your property, and he's like, no, I don't give a damn. I'm in Ibiza drinking myself stupid and getting laid. Well, then if your house falls down, it falls down. That's all I can say. I am sick to death of contacting him, and for him to then expect to turn up within an hour, to just sort of stand there and go, oh yeah, I'll get that done in a week. This has been going on now for 8 years, okay? And it's this year that I've noticed more water damage around this particular area of the kitchen. So if it hadn't have been for the spiders, I would have had more wasps in my house. I don't have any photographs, I didn't take any, but you could literally see externally, because I deliberately allowed the spiders to be in that vicinity, you can actually see all these little like mothball type things. They're actually spider eggs, and they're in the window on the outside. And what they were actually doing was catching the wasps. So to the spiders, this was the ideal habitat for them. And it also meant that whilst I was waiting for the wasp nest to be dealt with by my landlord, it was kind of preventing as many wasps coming into the kitchen. So I have, like I said, I don't have an issue with the spiders. And because of where they are, it's not where I cook food or prepare food. So again, from a health and safety or hygiene point of view, I don't have an issue. Now, personally, I hate this sink. I try not to use it whenever I can, and I leave washing up to the 11th hour. All of the sealant has gone around the sink itself. So if I was to overfill the sink, or if my children volunteered to help me wash up, basically the water is literally dripping down the wall. Again, I've told my landlord, and he's like, oh, just buy some silicone and seal it. Well, silicone isn't going to help. I mean, all of the melamine has come off the sink, around the sink. There's a huge hole here, a huge crack. Again, general wear and tear. I've been here almost 10 years now, and I've said to him, you know, I have tried to cover it. I have used wax, I've used wax crayons, but it needs replacing. There is nothing actually holding this sink up at all. There are no support beams. This is the dog's dinner of all the pipe work that is under the sink. There's my first aid kit. There are no doors. I don't mind that there aren't any doors. I don't tend to keep any chemicals or poisons or anything in the kitchen because I have children. And again, because it's constantly subjected to damp, it helps that it is open for ventilation. It also means that it's more easier and accessible for me to get to certain things. I haven't got to be self-conscious about doors opening. And when I used to live on a boat, again, we never had doors on anything. I mean, people were saying, well, stuff would just fall out the cupboards. No, it doesn't. All you need is like a little beam, like a piece of wood at the front, just to make sure that nothing falls. We used anti-grip mats. So again, unless you were not moored up correctly, or somebody came past you in a canoe really, really fast, the boat never really rocked enough for it to cause your pots or pans or cups or saucers to fall to the floor and smash. So I loved the whole open plan idea. Again, it's great for the boys because I know I'm got to worry about them trapping their fingers. But again, there are no chemicals under here for them to play with. And I've had to literally put a tray underneath where I think the leak is. So I'm literally painstakingly emptying that out. So it does need replacing. And personally, if it was my kitchen, I wouldn't have had the sink here. I would have moved it over so that it would be in line with the window, which, excuse the mess, but it is my dirty weekend video, which would have meant, yes, I would have necessarily have lost this kind of space here to drainage, which I wouldn't have had a problem with if it was my kitchen, because right next to it is the boiler, which has been put in. This is a new boiler. It's working now. It wasn't before. And you can see how big the previous boiler was by where the huge gap is to the left of the boiler that hasn't been filled in. But then that would have meant that if the sink had been more central to the window, it probably would have helped better with drainage because of where the drain is outside. It then would have meant that this area which I have now designated for my tea making and breakfast area, which I know is a mess and needs cleaning and deep cleaning and is cluttered, and I've had to use a shelf to give me some extra storage capacity. It would have been bigger, and I think personally and practically it would have been better for me if this space was more readily available for prep. Because when you're like, you know, cutting up your veggies for Sunday dinner, I kind of work left to right. So again, I would have used this area to cut up my veggies. Then I would use the sink to rinse everything. And then I would have used the oven, which doesn't even work. And then that's a gas hob. Sorry about product placement. Again, there's no vent. So I'm constantly having to clean that wall if I use the hob. There's no ventilation. The wipeable stuff that I've put on, like the vinyl, I did that myself to try and make it a little bit more easier and give it and prevent the grease from building up on the walls. What I am having to use, because the oven doesn't work, is I haven't dressed, don't worry, of these like smaller ovens, which originally I did have where I've put my plants. But I was a little bit dubious about that because, again, where the plug sockets are, I've had to try and utilise the plugs. And I wasn't really using these ones in the corner due to accessibility. This unit has completely blown. Originally, this was on the wall. It fell off. So at the moment, it's just, I haven't thrown it away because it's not mine, it's my landlord's. And I'm using it for storage at the moment. So by having that obviously where it is, I've lost a lot of space here. Despite the clutter, I've lost a lot of prep space there. So you have to think to yourself, you know, when you've got a kitchen or any place that you're going to work or use, it needs to be usable and it needs to be practical. And I think in today's society, we do tend to buy a lot of stuff that we don't necessarily need. But again, if my oven works, I wouldn't need these. It's only because my landlord will not replace my oven that this is the only practical way that I've been able to use the facilities. And it does make it easier for me as well, because I struggle with lower ground space, bending because of my arthritis in my knee. And because of my abdomen, I have a lot of I've been told after having my colonoscopy that I'm fine internally, but that doesn't help the fact that if I'm bending down too much, the acid, I get a lot of acid reflux. So for me, having an oven at that height is brilliant. And again, if it was my own kitchen and not a rental, this is where my oven would be. You know, it's off the floor, it's not near where the children can reach it. And then if I was to let my 10-year-old cook something, again, it's sort of at his sort of height. So there's less chance of him burning himself or hurting himself. Health and safety wise, I probably shouldn't have put them on top of each other like this. I have made sure that there is a lot of ventilation, and when these are on, they're never left unsupervised. And they have a timer, which makes them a little bit more easier to use, a bit like a microwave. So yes, I would love some help into how to make this kitchen a little bit more practical to use. And hopefully, if I can find a way or somewhere to put my plants, which are loving this area, you can see how much they're thriving, then I will have more space to use in the future. Now, fridge and freezer, again, I've put them on top of each other. There was no unit here. Doesn't matter how many times I clean this fridge, doesn't matter how many times I clean the freezer, they're shot to shit basically, and sorry for the swearing, they need replacing. And again, the unit that I'm using here, that wasn't even here when I rented the house. I got this out of a skip over the road. Because I literally, this side, that is where the unit stops. So literally, if I scan from where the fridge is all the way along here where I've put my plates, again, easy access, to where my toaster is, there was no unit there at all. So when I rented the house, there was literally no workspace at all in this kitchen. So I've had to put that in myself, and it's not cost me anything, which is good. And then I've tried again to put my plates where it's easy for my children to reach, and the microwave and the toaster. I will probably rearrange the kitchen again because I'm just not happy with it. And I know I have a lot of stuff. It's part of my disability. I don't want to say that I'm a hoarder. I mean, a lot of people say I am, but my disability is obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. And one of the things that I obsess about is not throwing things away. Yes, that can be the same as hoarding, but for me it's slightly different. I had a mental breakdown over a decade ago when I was made homeless. And I ended up literally throwing so many things away. So when people say, oh, can you not just do that? I'm like, yeah, I can. I've done it. I've fled a country when I used to work abroad. And I literally, the only thing I carried with me on the airplane was one bag and my passport. Everything else got left. All my clothes, or all my food that I just purchased, everything. So I know in a case of an emergency, it's all materialistic shit that I don't need in my life, and I can get rid of it. But my anxiety and depression and my obsessive compulsive disorder kicks in because I have had to be put in those situations where I've literally had 5 minutes to make a decision, or and then I've had to leave. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone. It is literally like, if you, like people living in a war zone where they're told, okay, you've got 5 minutes, and if you don't leave your house now, you're going to die. And when people are put in those extreme situations, believe me, they will. The first thing you will think about is carrying your child, or, maybe not even putting on a pair of shoes, which would end up being a bit problematic in the long run. But you wouldn't be worried, and you wouldn't be stressing out about other things. All you would be worried about is the one thing you need, and that is your life, and that is to survive and to escape. And one of the obviously backlashes of that happening to me was a lot of personal information and documentation got destroyed. So then when I tried to be rehoused, I had to then try and prove to the government who I was, that I was born in the United Kingdom, that I'm not an illegal immigrant, that, that I'm not in debt with anybody, how much money I've got in my bank account. And then these vital pieces of documentation were needed. And yeah, you can go and get them again, but it was the time and the energy and the stress that it's taken me over the years to then re-get this documentation that has caused me to get to the point where I don't like throwing anything out, because I'm so scared of, oh God, if I don't keep this, what if I need it in the future? And I have to try and say to myself, no, stop. You need to stop doing this. But because it is a rented house and it's not my home, as I class it, I find it so hard to get into that mindset of it's okay to use the bin, it's okay to throw things away, you don't need this anymore, bin it. And then I'm like, what if I need it, and it's the same with paperwork. I mean, the amount of paperwork I've got is unbelievable. But again, I've had it where the Department of Work and Pensions have said, oh, you've broken the law, you've committed benefit fraud, you've not done this, you've not done that. And if I hadn't have kept, as stupid as it sounds, this piece of paper or a time or a day, or like I've done on my fridge, I've wrote information on my fridge, then basically I could have ended up in prison. And the amount of times I've had the Department of Work and Pensions threaten to send me to jail for something that isn't even my fault, that is something completely random, completely stupid. And I've literally walked into that job centre with a handful of documents and gone, okay, here is the information. If you want to sit here for 2 hours of your life and read through all this paperwork, fine. If you want to photocopy it. But I can prove out of a shadow of a doubt that I have not committed benefit fraud, that nobody is living in my house other than me and my children. And it is. And it's because of these little triggers that I've had to deal with that I everything else just seems to spiral out of control. So, breathe. So anyway, this was mainly a focus on talking about like my dirty weekend and literally trying to get my house and my ducks in a row and things into order. And I mean, most people will say to me, how can you live like this? How are you not ashamed of yourself? And I'm like, well, no, I'm not, because I have enough guilt. So I don't want to be constantly stressing out about the way I live. But like I've said to people in my life, when it gets to the point where I'm saying, oh my God, I can't live like this anymore, I am fed up of this, this is making me ill, this is making me sick, I've got to do something about it, then I know it has to be done. But it's like the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And it's the same with anyone who has a long-standing health problem or a mental health issue or anything. You can give them the medication, but it's up to them whether they take it. And with myself, I have to get to that point in my life where I say, okay, something has got to give. So the thing that's got to give is spending a few days trying to declutter my life. And I did actually watch a program about a guy online who actually declutters people's lives and houses for a living, but he also does it as a charity for, I think it might be charity related as well. And even he said, you know, when I go into people's homes, I have to be respectful because it's their home. So if there is paperwork, I won't throw it away. What I'll do is I will collate it all together and put it in a bag for life for them and say to them, okay, your paperwork's not been thrown away. It's not in the kitchen. It's not in the bathroom. It's not in the bedroom. It's not in the living room. It's all in one place. And, you know, and he'll throw stuff out like, I mean, I'm quite lucky. I've never been that bad. But like, you know, empty bottles or moldy food and stuff like that. But it can be really, really hard. And I think with mental health, people still don't know enough about it. And I know that you're watching the video and I'm showing you my plates, which is really annoying. But anyway, gear change. This originally, I've painted it, was where the cupboard was that I showed you that fell down. Don't ask me how it fell down. It just did. I opened the door one day and it fell on top of me. Luckily, I wasn't on my own and my sister helped me. She's really, really good at things like that. So, again, you know, it's just getting into that mindset. And at the moment, I'm really, really struggling with it. And what I've found is even if I've had people come in to help me, my paranoia will set in and I'd be like, what are you throwing away? Don't throw that away. Why are you putting that in the bin for? So when I get into the mindset of wanting to deep clean or declutter, I always find it helps me better if I do it on my own. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. And like I said, please give me your feedback. But if anyone is rude or abusive or disrespectful to me or anyone else on social media with your comments, they will be removed. So I'll just quickly pan round. Yes, I have my washing machine here. It is on, but again, it was raining earlier and I don't have anywhere really to dry washing unless I put the heating on and use the radiators, which people shouldn't really do, but we all do it. So what I will be doing as of next week is probably going back to just using the laundrette, because that's what I used to do when I lived on the boat, and it's just easier. You know, in the winter, the last thing you want is loads of damp clothes around your house. So for the sake of £10 to £20 per bag of washing, it can be washed, ironed, folded, put in a bag for life. It's done, it's dusted. It just makes things so much easier to live with. So the only reason, obviously, I've done this washing myself is because it's bedding. And my kids decided to spill juice on the bed, even though we have a strict do not take food or drinks into the bedroom. And yeah, I could have put them in a bag and took them to laundrette on Monday, but it was just easier and more convenient for me to just do it at home. So I do some of the washing at home, but I just find it easier to send it out and get it done elsewhere. So thank you very much and enjoy your Sunday.